5 minutes. Please take your seats. The program is about to begin. Please take your seats. Our program will begin now.
You made it through the rain. Did anyone get caught in the downpour? Because I got caught in a little bit of a downpour. I'm good, brushed off. Thank you, and welcome to Bloomberg's The Business of AI. Whether you're joining us here in Chicago or whether you're joining us virtually, from somewhere else in the world, we are super excited to have you here with us today. Now, it's no secret that artificial intelligence is set to transform the way we work. As more business leaders start to take that dive and make that transition, the question now becomes, how do they ensure that AI that they've invested in will bring them a return on their investment, right? In a way that is scalable, safe, and affordable. Now, you're going to hear from a number of business tech executives today who are going to share their experiences, their insights into how they did just that. And those results will make them a stronger, more nimble business. It'll also help them perform better and help their employees perform better as well. So before we get started, you're going to leave here with a few things. You're going to leave here with insights on how AI transformations, on how that transition will help bring an ROI. You're going to learn about how to ensure the scalability also the safety and the affordability, how that's going to happen. And you'll also learn and hear certain examples of successful implementation. But not only that, you'll learn about the challenges that they faced along the way, because new technology comes new challenges, and we're going to learn how to face those. But before we get started, a few housekeeping things. We have a few announcements to get through. First, I'd like to thank our sponsor, IBM. Without them, we would not be able to have all the conversations that we have on the stage for today. They will also be speaking here today, so stay tuned for that. They'll be joining us as well. If you have any questions, please feel free to ask your questions. It makes my job a heck of a lot easier, too. I'll tell you that on these panels. All you have to do is scan the QR code that will appear on your screen. You have it on your table as well. You have QR codes, so you just scan it, write in your question, and we'll try our very best to get some of those questions in with you today. Also, social media. If any of you are on social media, whatever platform it is, please engage. Use the hashtag #ValueOfAI. If you post anything, also follow at Bloomberg Live, yes. And also tag us if you post anything, any comments, any pictures, anything like that, to kind of spread the word. And you can also follow along there for some highlights along the way. With all that said, we've got all the housekeeping out of the way. I'd like to get things started for today. I'd like to introduce you to our first guest. She is a data and AI expert with a vast experience in teaching companies how to implement AI and how to make them better and how to make them more efficient and make the customer experience much better as well. Please welcome Marcela Vairo.
Thank you, Lisa. Good afternoon, everyone. It's really a pleasure to be with you all today here. And, well, I have only 5 minutes to talk, so I will tell you that first, IBM is really putting AI to work inside of IBM. So we are really drinking our own champagne. We have more than 20 cases currently into production in several areas. So we are using that in HR, in sales, in supply chain, in finance, in quoting, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And that helped us, for instance, in the last 12 months to increase our free cash flow in 42%. But we also learned a lot working with customers across the globe over the last months. And I would like to share some of the lessons learned with you in the 4 minutes that I have right now. So the first one, you have to think about the impact of your project. So many companies are doing many tests, many pilots with AI, but how do you scale that? What if it works? Are you prepared for that? What's the benefit? What's the impact in your business? So again, the technology is there, but think about what do you expect from it? And then you can make a decision and a choice where to start with. So this is one thing. The second thing, and it's related to that, it's the model. Model matters. The world's going to be a multi-model world. So you have to think about models that are trustable. You trust the data that fed that model. You have to think about models that are accurate, right? Because your results and your processes and your apps will depend on the accuracy of the model. And you also have to think about models that are cost effectively, right? Because you can choose a model that it works very well, but then when it scales, it's just like impossible to lead with that. So models is a second thing. The third thing is data. Data is being produced. Data is what feeds artificial intelligence projects. Are you ready for that? Do you trust your data? Do you trust the quality of your data? Do you have systems and tools that can gather data, not only across your enterprise, but data from the market, from different systems, from different appliances, data that it's in a multi-cloud and hybrid environment? Are you ready for that? On the long run, we really believe that those customers that can really deal with this amount and volume of data that is changing all the time will be the leaders in the Gen AI and AI adoption. And finally, governance. We are all enterprises here, so we need to be able to trust the results of our AI models. We need to be able to have transparency in what we are doing using AI. Could be internally, could be externally, but you need to trust that. We are more and more regulated. You've seen what happened in Europe. They already have the AI Act here. We know what's going on in the US. So start thinking about governance and monitoring your models since the beginning. We can help you on that, but again, don't scale and then think about it. It may be already too late for your reputation, for the results you are getting from it. So this is the short message that I had to give to you today, and I hope you enjoyed the event. Thank you.
AI has the power to automate. But if it's using untrusted data, can you trust the results? Your business doesn't just need AI, it needs the right AI for your business. This is Watson X, a platform designed to multiply output by tailoring AI to your needs. When you Watson X your business, you can train, tune, and deploy AI, all with your trusted data. Let's create the right AI for your business with Watson X. IBM, let's create.
Back again, here we go. It's time for our first panel. We're going to focus here specifically on the customer operations. I'd like to welcome to the stage Christian Mitchell from Northwestern Mutual, Szabolcs Paldi from Discover Financial Services, and Arlie Sisson from Hyatt.
Thank you. May I sit next to you?
Yes. Thank you. So we are going to take everyone on a little bit of a journey, right? So we're talking about first how you find out the need, because that's usually the problem. People are sitting here and they're wondering, how do I get started? So you start with that need. Then you start of how I'm going to use AI. Then you talk about implementation, how it's transforming your business. So we're going to take that journey one step at a time, okay? I want to start with, Christian, I want to start with you. Now, Northwestern Mutual, known for financial services, your bread and butter is life insurance. And you're using AI in different ways, using it for customers, financial advisors, using for home office workers as well. Talk about the specific customer experience. What need did you see for AI? How are you using it, and how are you implementing it?
Yeah, I'll talk about two implementations. So people come to us for insurance protection. Underwriting can be a long and arduous process.
Yes.
We might send someone to your house to take fluids or your blood pressure, et cetera, and then that process can take weeks, or historically it could take weeks. So using what I would characterize as like classical AI ML, we're able to implement a variety of models that shrunk that time significantly. So today, 25% of our volume is issued essentially instantaneously. It's a much better client experience, and more importantly, people get protection, very, very readily. The other implementation I would note, which is more Gen AI. So our products are on the books for literally decades. The oldest product that is still on the books was sold in 1934, believe it or not. And so people call us up and they have questions about something that they may have purchased 20, 30, 40 years ago. So that's a strain on our customer service reps to be able to provide that information. So we've done a RAG implementation with all of our product information. So a client calls up, has a question about an old product, and get an answer, very accurate answer very quickly.
Excellent. And Arlie, I wanted to go to New UX. You mentioned AI helps with self-service translations, training, but talk specifically on the customer experience and how you've decided you found that need for AI, how you're using it, and how you're implementing it.
Absolutely. Well, we all love to travel, I think, right? That's definitely my preference. And quite frankly, we want our purpose and what we always build on the experiential side to be experiential, not transactional, right? So when we start looking at our data and how we're going to apply it, we have some pretty great data on folks, quite frankly. And so our idea was, let's start to look at the most commonly used touch points of when they would experience a travel booking process. And it always starts with a few things. The first place we looked at was search. When you search for where you're going, you might put in Chicago. A classic approach is to then drop you, in the hotel industry, we drop you city center. I don't know that that's what everyone's expecting, right? And that's when you start to go on your own journey of, okay, well, I'm staying, in Wesley versus Gold Coast, and you start to explore that. I don't know that that's everyone's anticipated experience when you're searching, but you're used to doing that, right? As consumers, we've been trained that way. A little untraining that we did on our side was to be able to say, well, what if we took the preferences, the data that we know about you, your past stay history, what brands you might prefer of ours, and place you in that search order first, right? And it has been very we'll just say productive for us. It's been very good. It's very exciting to see the results and the engagement that we get from us. And I think that the exciting thing, back to my opening comment, was that's back to being experiential first. That leads to a transactional great experience next, which is very exciting for us.
I love that. All right. And Zabosh, you have at Discover this just recently. You started using Gen AI in your customer care center. So explain how you decided to use it.
Sure. So as you guys know, Discover is a direct bank, and our primary focus has been on the customer. That's one of the core value proposition of our brand. So we wanted to make sure that we can progress the customer experience with the new tools as they come out to the future. Now, digital banking changed the traditional customer experience. Most of the things that you want to do, you can get done digitally. So what happens at the same time is that when you really need something, when a question is really difficult, that's when you get to the call center. So our call center agents are getting more and more difficult questions every single year as digital banking is getting better. You don't want to call to ask your balance most of the times because you know you have the balance or payment. But the agents are stuck with the difficult questions, and they are stuck with the difficult part of answering those questions. So what we try to solve is how can we provide direct answers to the customers once they hit a customer service agent, when they pick up the phone. And generative AI has core capabilities that helps us exactly do that. It can help aggregate information. If you think about, similarly to Christian's case, all the procedures that the agents have to follow to find the right answer for a customer question. With regular search, that takes quite a bit of a time. With generative AI, you can actually find a summary for one of all the procedures, and you can find references if it's finely tuned, so the agent can go back, jump to the detailed conversation procedures as well. So it really helps to ease the burden on the agents, and happy agents lead to happy customers. So what we try to do is try to weave the needle so we can enable the customer service agents. There's a great number of other solutions there that can help if somebody comes from our digital assistant and breaks over to a customer service agent to manually service. Generative AI is a really great tool to summarize all the conversation history. So, Lisa, when you cut over to the human agent, they don't have to ask Lisa, how may I help you? They can say, Lisa, I see that you are trying to make a transaction. Can I help you complete this? So those are the things that are actually very promising, and those are the things that we are putting into production, and they are really working both for the agents and for the customers themselves.
And it's funny because you mentioned the human, and that kind of leads into what some people may be thinking. How do you find that right balance between the human and the machine? It leads me, we have a question right here from Ting-Kao Lu from JP Morgan. If AI displaces the majority of jobs, how are ordinary people going to survive? So it's that question out there that is on the mind of a lot of workers. Arlie, how would you handle this, the human side? How do you find that balance?
I think, with our training and our programming so far, it's humans doing that work as well. And I think that we're incredibly excited to empower our teams to be that human in the loop with an assistant.
Okay.
Right? I don't think that where we're going ever is an incredible, just new frontier of robots running around, right? That's not what I know any of us are, quite frankly, working towards. And none of us want to experience, right? Like we all have engagements already today, right, with certain chatbots and things of that nature, and you're like, wow, that's not maybe what I hoped for in this experience, right?
Representative. Like, let me talk to somebody.
Yes, when you are yelling representative into the phone at rising octaves, it's not probably
yes.
But could we make that representative, as you were just saying, so much better and faster and more empowered, and we have less turnover, and now we have happier customer service agents? Absolutely, and I think that's what I'm most excited to see happen.
Okay, and Christian, how do you find that right balance?
Yeah, two perspectives. So I think we're headed towards a future that's just going to be absolutely awash in AI-created content, video, text, images, et cetera. And I think in that future, like, human interaction is actually going to be more important and precious. And so I think there's always going to be a role for humans. The other perspective that I would offer is I think if we look historically, whenever mankind's been given an incredibly powerful tool, it's created some displacement, but then it's freed up time for people to do higher level work, more important jobs. And so I'm optimistic that's the future we're headed towards.
Perfect. And that's Zabosh, how do you see it?
Yeah, it's a very important question, but this is what we practically find as we work on this. So traditionally, if you build a new platform, a new customer service platform or any kind of platform, it requires a lot of engineering. With generative AI, that is not really the case. If you use a platform, if you use a cloud provider, if you use open source, the technology itself is very readily available. On the other hand, to fine-tune it so it is going to be good at your specific use case. For example, in Discover's case, understanding the procedures that a Discover customer service agent has to follow. There, what you really need is expert agents who can actually help fine-tune, who can tell us whether the AI is providing the right answers or not. It can promote the skills of the person who writes the agent procedures. So it brings out those knowledge workers into a completely different light. It's a much richer job and much more important role that they play now. And that's a little bit of a change that we see. Again, much less engineering and a whole lot more specific knowledge that is going to be required at every skill that AI is going to, or generative AI is going to support. So it is quite frankly a very exciting dynamic.
Now, I want to head back to you because we're talking about how this transition has transformed the business and how you might see a return on investment, whether it's productivity, whether there's revenue, whether there's something tied to it. Since you started just incorporating this earlier this year, how much of a difference, or what have you seen since then?
Sure. I mean, what I can absolutely tell you, Lisa, is that some of the first things that we put into production were to help the agents find information faster. And the actual measured data on agents who are doing this in production is that they get to the information right around 70% faster than with traditional search tools.
That's a big
and
difference.
It is a big difference, I tell you why, because the traditional tools take an answer a minute or two, and if you are on the phone, that's a lifetime.
Sure.
That's a lifetime. The new with the generative AI supported solution is seconds. So they can keep the customer in conversation. They don't have to tell you, Lisa, may I put you on hold for a minute? And then you wonder what is happening. But they can carry on with the conversation. So that makes all the difference. And it's very important. And, the way we try to use it is just create better customer experience. Just create better customer experience. And, if the agent's job is a little bit easier, they can pay a little bit more attention to the circumstances of the customer. They can pay a little bit more attention to the sentiment of the customer, and they can just do a better job. And that's really important. And our hopes is that it will unlock even more opportunity for that.
Wow. Now, Christian, you had mentioned, we're hearing, the 70% figure, and you had mentioned that it increases the time, let's say, would take someone 60 days and turn it into 3 days or less.
Yeah.
Is that correct?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, I mean, that's one of the beauties of this technology is you can take these things that it used to take armies of humans to do and do them very, very readily. And as I mentioned earlier, really get people having protection or a financial plan or whatever it may be very, very readily. And so as we, to kind of riff on the ROI question, as we look across the enterprise, are we seeing massive bottom line impact right now? Not yet. But the experiential metrics are all going in the right direction. CSAT, NPS, how long our clients are on the calls or first call resolution. All of that gives us just tremendous confidence that this will lead to incredible economic impact in the years to come.
And Arlie, you had mentioned something, 10x. Okay, you have to go there for me.
Yeah. Well, I think I love hearing your example specifically, right? Because it starts out a little slow, right? And you're saying, I can feel this wave coming because you see those metrics coming. We obviously, with the search example I was just sharing with you all, we can see that transaction happening faster. You probably see conversion happening faster.
Yep.
You're having resolution faster. All of that leads back to a number somewhere. And I think for us, when we think about how do we get you to the place that you're looking for the fastest, a 10x return is absolutely something all of us should be expecting, right? When you have that, if you're able to have the computing power behind you to inform better decision makings, I think it absolutely isn't something that anyone shouldn't expect.
And it's not easy. I'm sure you've all had different challenges you've had to face along the way. There's different things. There's data security, data storage, questions about security as well. But one of the things that I want to talk about too is there's a question here that kind of ties into it from Dragos Visan for Northwestern. How do you prioritize and value IT transformation projects such as AI plus implementations where you do see data governance, data management playing a role? So that's what you're also dealing with too, data governance and data management. So what kind of challenges, Arlie, I want to bring this to you first. From those things that we've talked about, challenges, have you seen any of those? Or maybe it's something else that you've experienced, and how did you handle that?
Yeah, I think that question is awesome, and I think it's because it's where you have to start. It's what data you have. How good is it? How much do you trust it? Can you leverage it? Can you put it in somewhere where you can access it and it can be culled by these models? And then you'll start to see it and you'll be like, And I will say, from our experience, I'll just stay on search because it's we'll stay on that topic.
That's okay.
Okay. I don't want to overkill that use case, but I do think it's such a good one, right? Because we're even seeing, we know where you want to stay, and I tend to stay, at Hyatt places over other brands, and it'll send me in that direction. But walking distance is a different model that we would train than just distance on rating of my experiences. So if I don't train the model to know that Hoboken is not New York City, it will recommend that to me, right? Because it is in a distance perspective where I want to go. So I also think the ongoing maintenance and updating of these things is so imperative. And quite frankly, you won't know until you see it live, right? So it's also immensely important to make sure that you have that team there. You're deeply integrating your data science team into the digital experience team, which I have the honor of leading for Hyatt. We are arm in arm with those friends just to ensure that everything we build now is in lockstep, because we will continue to evolve it in the same way that we evolve every other product, right? Now you're just working the duality of the data that's being shown and marrying it to the experience that you want to continue to evolve it to.
Wow. And Christian, you had mentioned when it comes to challenges, one of the things you have is an innovation lab. So how is that helpful in meeting some of these challenges? And is this something maybe people should think about?
Yeah, so we have an innovation lab in New York that's completely separate from the mothership. And what it allows us to do is experiment really quickly and cheaply with a lot of things that would probably be too scary for us to do for data privacy or governance or regulation, all of these things. But what we can do in this kind of safe sandbox is really play around with these things and kind of de-risk some of these potential ideas, whether it's analyzing consumer sentiment over a Zoom call or like call transcription or various kind of heads-up displays for advisors if they're engaging in a financial planning conversation. We can de-risk them to a point and understand the dynamic such that we can then pass it off to the mothership, and it can become a digital experience that we would actually put into production. So it's a way of really speeding up that learning in a safe way.
And what are the certain challenges that you have seen or you have faced that kind of stand out to you, and how did you face that?
So as we contemplate putting things in production, there's just so many challenges. All the various dimensions that you laid out,
Sure.
Regulatory, legal, data privacy, data governance. And for us, we're talking about people's money. This is like really, really high stakes stuff. Like we can't get it wrong, as exciting as the tools are. And so the way we've tackled it is we've created an AI council, a Gen AI council. So you've got representatives from the business, all of the technical fields, legal, regulatory, everybody's around the table. And they're prioritizing the POCs, they're prioritizing what we put into production, they're covering the gamut of governance. Now, it might seem kind of strange to do kind of innovation by committee. You have to be careful who you put on this, this group. But my conviction is the technology is so powerful and so transformative. You need all those eyes on it. And most importantly, you need that dialogue, that cross-disciplinary, cross-functional dialogue, so we do this in the right way.
We have the same setup, and what I find is it's actually incredibly empowering because a lot of us are learning all of this at the same time, quite frankly.
That's right.
And so to learn from our legal partners about things that might be happening, help inform what we might build next. And so the same council setup, I love it. It's my favorite hour of the week. And it is kind of weird to have a committee to do this, right? Because usually we're agile and we're moving so quickly. I think it's the most agile thing you can do in a space that is moving as fast as this is.
I think it's a really powerful change management mechanism,
Absolutely.
too, because then you're seeding knowledge of Gen AI across the enterprise, and so you get people leaning in. I think it's really going to bear fruit as we go forward.
Wow, and Zappos Discover has a governance council as well. So talk to us about how you're talking about this organizational change. You say that that's a big challenge.
Sure, and it seems like we are using the same best practices.
That's a good thing.
The primary objective, one of it is educating the organization, as you guys said, and I think that's very important. But at the same time, you also have to create a framework for evaluating what kind of risk any one of the ideas that come up from the enterprise brings. The way we try to implement the AI Governance Council is a little bit more to create this framework. So it helps to educate the legal team, compliance team, Chief Information Security Officer, technology, business. But also what it does, it builds a framework, and then instead of trying to come up with the ideas in the console, these are usually senior people, and that's not where you're necessarily going to find the ideas. What they do is they build a risk framework so ideas can emerge from the business, and the governance can create a risk-based evaluation in what order, how the company feels comfortable executing them. And hopefully, it leads to the point that the enterprise comes up a relentless list and pipeline of ideas where you can deploy it. And then the console is there to create a framework to systemically categorize them, evaluate the risk, and take on the ones that the company feels comfortable with. And it is very important. I think just as much as for you guys, we had very good experience with it. And I think that's the right way to approach it. That's a good start for anyone who is looking to get down on this path.
And in the last couple minutes that we have here, let's look ahead, look to the future. Where do you see the future of this going? What are you excited about? What keeps you up at night? Christian, I know you're very deeply involved in AI. Where do you see it going from here?
You know, it sounds so cliched to say, but it's going to just so fundamentally transform industries. You know, so we provide broad wealth management services, but we're a life insurance company. I think it's going to fundamentally change human longevity. So for our under age 45 clients, the biggest driver of mortality is motor vehicle accidents. Okay. So you think about autonomous vehicles, it's going to address that huge driver of mortality. And then you think about everything that's happening, Gen AI, use it for imaging or personalized medicine. I think we can argue time frame, but we're moving to a period where we're going to significantly increase human longevity. That's wonderful, but for a life insurance company, that could actually impact demand for our products. So how do we imagine a new value bundle, a new way of engaging our clients? Like I think it's super exciting and a little scary at the right time, but that's where we're leaning in.
Excellent. And Zables, you had said something that you see less engineering and more moving with the technical writers who will use AI as well.
Yeah, it's very interesting. It's fascinating to look into just the basic mechanics of what are those skills at your enterprise that is really important. And it does seem that with generative AI, or maybe AI in general, your data is becoming very important. Not necessarily as it is sitting in a structured database or as you might have it in Snowflake, but the data that you have with your experts, with your people. And that can be, a technical writer who just really knows certain processes. It could be a customer service agent. It could be somebody who works with data. But that becomes really important because to fine-tune and to get the foundational models to the point that you can really deploy it to solve problems within your own enterprise, that's the glue, that's the missing piece. That's what helps to tune, that's what helps to create the specialized deployment. And that is fascinating. That will likely change the value of many of these jobs, and quite frankly, a great number of them with specific domain knowledge are just going to be that much more important.
Excellent. And Arlie, what are you excited about? What keeps you up at night when you're thinking about all this stuff?
No, I would say I am nothing but excited, quite frankly. Yeah. I started my career when the iPhone came out. That's when I started to get into technical product. And I remember I was like, this is going to change my life. And I didn't think I'd have another run at it so soon. But I think we're at another pivotal point, right? We will see implementations and empowerment and all the great things, right, that those devices gave us and the power it gave us. I also think that we will see those that want to be empowered by this, right? And it's so exciting to me, quite frankly, when I talk to a bellman, to a front desk agent, to my product team that's here, they all see the power in this, and they want to share their ideas. They want to be part of that process. They know the sticky parts of their job today, and they're coming forward and saying, you think this could help? And we are so elated to have that kind of engagement. And that's what I would say, too. I don't think it's anything to be scared of, because we have great people within Hyatt that are working to make their jobs even better and our processes even better, and the pride that they take in that. I can feel it when we have those conversations already. And that's what gets me excited, that they're excited, right? And that I will get to build products that make them better at their roles every day.
Excellent. And we have like 3 minutes left, so I want to touch one more thing. Where do you still see a challenge? Where do you say, you know what, I wish this could still do this? Zables, I know you were talking about time and experimentation, how that can be a challenge. It's very time-consuming. Is that?
So yes, as extremely powerful the foundational models are, And as much as you see a new model come out essentially every day, it still takes quite a bit of an effort to use these models for specific problems, like very specific problems that you want to solve in the enterprise. If you want to help, to have a better marketing creative developed, but you are in a specific industry and you work with certain type of imagery, it takes quite a bit of a fine-tuning. And what I'm looking forward to, and I think it's coming, it's just a matter of time, is how the fine-tuning process can be accelerated. The models are super powerful, but the fine-tuned applications for direct use, that still takes quite a bit of an effort. And I think we're going to see lots of investment go into solving that problem in the near future. And it's exciting that we'll have to scale it to solve actual problems beyond the wow factor of how amazing this is.
And Christian, is there anything left that you wish, I wish this could be fixed, or I wish,
I think the challenge ahead for us is change management. I mean, I think the foundational models are so powerful, and we're probably only even scratching the surface of what they're capable of doing. It's, getting people to use them right, helping people understand what it means to write a good prompt, like how they need to think about their business area and transform it. I think largely the challenge in front of us is one of human change management.
Do you find the same?
Absolutely. I say, yeah, that's why I started. I was like, for you. I think, you're going to have a new position at several companies, which is like prompt writing coach. You're like, where did that come from, right? Like, everyone was worried about jobs going away. We are making up new jobs as we go, right? And I think that's an incredibly exciting piece. And I guess, the thing I wish was just that people would put some boats in the water and try it themselves, right? I think that is such a powerful thing. I think, there's still... Yes, ChatGPT is incredibly exciting, right? And folks can sign on and use that. I think as you find ways within your own enterprise, the best way to do this and also empower education of your entire teams is to get together and talk about it, but then also to start to try some things, right? In those safety risk environment, there's absolutely a ton of tasks that you can take on internally to help your teams see and get their minds thinking and collect those amazing ideas of what you can empower them to do.
Excellent. That does it. Well, thank you, guys. Thank you so much. It's a pleasure.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Awesome.
Have a good one. Thank you. All right. Hope everyone is jotting down notes, getting all that down. It is now time for our IBM Sponsor Spotlight. This is going to be really interesting. We're talking about how AI could change the world of college football. Yes, you heard that right, college football. Please welcome to the stage Edward Adams, Bloomberg Media Studios, and Kenyon Rashid, CEO and co-founder of Edge 3.
Thank you, Lisa. We're in for a treat today because we've got an entrepreneur here whose business plan is ripped from the headlines. And just like a lot of overnight sensations, the tentacles of this go all the way back 30 years ago, right?
Yep.
Because 3 decades ago, you were playing on the Oklahoma Sooners squad. You were co-captain, also Dean's List, all 4 years, might say.
Yep.
After that, you went into the NFL. You were at the Giants for 2 years and the Jets for 1.
Yep.
And then in the subsequent years, you've been in the business of both sports marketing and in software, right? And so now you're trying to address the problems of what's going on with college football in a new social sort of app. And I want to just set the scene for people who may not be familiar with the sport. A lot of things have happened in college sports in the last 3-4 years. Number one, the Supreme Court said you can't prohibit college players from being paid. Number two, the NCAA changed the rules on how you can transfer schools. You no longer have to sit out a year if you want to transfer, which means now students who don't like their coach, don't like how much playing time they're getting, they're on the transfer market and they're able to play the next year. And then lastly, schools themselves have been in pursuit of profit, trying to move from this conference to that conference. It's totally changed the way things have worked. Tell us how Edge 3 is meant to address that.
Well, we're here to bring data to both sides, much what you've heard earlier. How you search, how do you find the right fit? All of those things that we did at the professional model now have moved to the collegiate model. And so you have kids and parents that are making $4 million decisions. You have schools now that are making $4 million decisions. And what are they using today to do that? is an old system that's been around for the last 40 years, and it has to pivot. So what we are doing is bringing tools that are much like in the business community now, which we heard a lot of those in the earlier panel. And we're using personas to change the search. So athletes are looking for schools. They are sellers. Well, what do I have and who should buy my goods? And so we are going to and have aggregated all of the Division I schools and what they are doing on the field. And then we have a history of that because we're able to pull that data and start to analyze it and model it out to give you a quick answer, which is, what school is best for me? And coaches are asking the same question. What kid should I pay, and how should I pay them, and how much should I pay them? And so where you place that at, with an old model where you have analysts and you don't have enough resources, is you use AI. And that's what we're doing to help these coaches and athletes.
You talk about the data, and there's lots of data out there. I can't tell you how many times I see people, saying these are the 5-star high school players out there that ought to be recruited by the big schools. What's your system do that's different to that? It's predicting how they're going to perform in college?
Yes. So the current rating systems are rating peer-to-peer. And that is, how do you compare to a kid in your class or another athlete in your class? They're not comparing them to the athletes that are playing at the collegiate level. What we are doing is taking all of those athletes at the collegiate level for the last 15 years and comparing you to that. And then we're projecting that out to the NFL. So for instance, if you go online right now and type in Kenyon Rashid, you'll be able to find my 40-yard dash time. Now, what I'll tell you is that it's not too good. But the fact that the data still exists out there should tell you how much data exists on athletes. So aggregating that data and developing baselines on it is what we've been able to do with Edge 3.
And some of the predictive models you're using are quite interesting. I mean, you were telling me earlier about not just if somebody plays football well, but if they play other sports or if they have relatives who played other sports and that kind of thing factoring in.
So all of those things start to factor in when you start looking at success models. And so as a parent, if I have a kid who is playing sports, what I want to know is, what should I do with him? Who should I talk with to give me information to best guide my son? And what we've seen with youth sports is everybody's paying. It's $20 to get into a youth third grade game now. It's $15 to park. I got a trainer that I'm paying $85 a week to train my daughter or my son. So what next? How do I progress past this? What camp should I go to? What unofficial visits should I attend? If I do and am lucky enough to be recruited and I've got 3 schools, how do I determine which one's the best fit for me? So I went to Oklahoma. I was recruited by every school in the country. I mean, every one of them. And as an 8th grader, I had college coaches telling me everything great about myself in the school. How do I know the difference if I'm just listening to a coach? So what we've done is say, okay, we hear you. We're going to learn who you are because all your data is public. You've already put it out there. So we're going to give you a picture of who they see you to be. And then we're going to take in some additional data points, and then we're going to start to run it against those baselines to determine if you are more likely to be successful against those rosters. And it's been eye-opening.
So with these predictive models, clearly you've got to use AI to pull in all this data. You said you had 15,000 students in the system. So you got to pull that in with AI. How else are you using AI in the system to enable people to access it?
So this is the great thing about bringing AI to life, is we don't see AI unless we're using it ourselves. And so what we began to do with schools and college coaches is, how are you communicating with student athletes, and when do you have to communicate? How much time do you have in a day to do that? What are the compliance rules around when you can communicate? Because if we can eliminate some of that through our AI by asking the right questions on the front end to get a better understanding of who that kid is and whether he fits your culture, then we are doing a lot of the work that you can't do. And at the end of the day, when someone goes to write a check for something, what do you write a check for? Either you're going to save me time or you're going to save me money. And those are the 2 things that we are saving on both sides of this equation that everyone is doing in our business world in different verticals. We have just applied it to the users in an industry that no one sees the processes of. And so that's what's been so eye-opening about this.
And some people, myself included, until we started to talk, would think, okay, college football, it's a big deal, but they can't be spending that much money on this. what's the typical Division I school spending on recruiting students?
Just on recruiting alone is about $2 million. But what I can tell you is that student athletes, because of the name, image, and likeness law, are being paid like professional athletes. So we are all in Chicago. I'm pretty sure they did a deep dive on Caleb Williams before they drafted. It's called the combine. It's called interviews. It's called all of that. Well, in today's world, a coach has to decide, do I keep recruiting a high school kid or do I recruit a college kid? And I got 48 hours to make that decision. But you've given me the same resources that I've had 20 years ago. So how do I apply it? So what we've done is said we can help you on both sides by accelerating those processes.
And the kids can be helped by this too, right? Particularly the kids, and I found this interesting, who are not being sought after necessarily by colleges, not being offered scholarships, kids who aren't as good as you were one day.
Well, thank you.
And those are the kids that can help because they can then understand what their market is, right?
Well, what we tell kids is most of the kids are sellers. And by that, I mean there's no buyers. I want to go to college. I want to play college football, but I'm 5'10", and I run a 5'1". Well, you still think you're going to Alabama. Most kids still believe that they can go there. So what we do is say, okay, well, what are you good at? Let's look at your strengths, and then let's look at the schools who value those strengths, because we can look across every school that is out there, Division I, Division II, and we can look across every player that's ever played at those schools to find a likely match for you. So we're not saying you can't play at Alabama. We're saying you're more likely to be successful at Illinois State. And if we can give you that earlier in your career from a mom or dad, then maybe you start making financial decisions in sports that fit more likely outcomes. That's the hope.
There were a lot of companies you probably could have gone to try and create this AI-driven system. You chose IBM. Why?
Well, because my data still exists on the internet and I don't like it. So data governance is going to be a key to this, because at the end of the day, athletes are starting to understand that that data is worth money. So who's protecting that data? Who's making sure that that data is authentic? So an example that I give is pretty soon you're going to see an athlete on TV talking like me. And it's not going to be me, but it will sound like me. It will look like me. It will interact with you like me. And it will come from a platform called Edge 3, because we have a bunch of us that parents can't connect with directly. So how do we scale it? We use AI to scale it.
Right. And this system now in beta, right? You're intending to go public with this in August?
In August 1st.
Okay. And so just so you know, if any of you are parents of high school-aged football players in this room, he will be at the reception afterwards. So if you want to ask him a couple questions before this goes live, that's your opportunity. Sir, thank you for the time.
Thank you very much.
Take care.
Appreciate it.
All right. Are you working on any high school softball? Is that in the way? I got a softball player. We're going to talk. All right. Thank you, guys. It's now time. We're going to turn the attention a little bit here and go to the internal customer. We're talking about the employer, right? Your employees. How are they feeling about this whole AI change? For that, I'd like to welcome to the stage Bloomberg Chicago Bureau Chief Isis Almeida, along with Michael Vaccaro from MasterCard.
We all know that the global economy is facing a productivity crisis. There was a recent study that actually showed that in advanced economies, things are really actually quite bleak. It slowed significantly, especially since the financial crisis. I think the biggest example we have is that in the 5 years to 2002, productivity gains averaged 2.2% a year. In the period through 2007, that slowed to 1.6%. And you might think that that's really bad, but actually in the decade to 2022, that is slow to less than 1%. So it doesn't look really good for the global economy right now. Maybe it doesn't look so good for companies that are trying to increase productivity, and all of that is happening at a time when we need productivity the most. We need productivity to increase to fight inflation, and we obviously need that to, pay for a costly but much needed energy transition. For most people here, that will sound horrible. Before AI, it's a huge, huge, huge opportunity. So I think that's one of the things that we want to talk about. We have Michael Farcar here, MasterCard's Chief People Officer, and he's here to talk today to us about his experiences. Michael, thanks for being here. Walk us through what MasterCard is doing, how it's using AI to improve its internal processes, and give us a few examples. You know, for a lot of us, it's like AI is a bit, what is really AI, you know, is a little abstract.
Yeah, sure. So great to be here. And so in my role, heading up human resources for MasterCard, there's two aspects to it. One is really looking at what can I do to improve the experience for our employees, our candidates, our managers, so the internal workings of HR itself. And then the other piece is really looking at how do I enable and support the rest of the organization and how they're thinking about deploying AI tools for increasing revenue or improving efficiencies in the workplace. So there's a couple of ways of looking at it, and I do think the way that we're talking about it today is there's two parts. One is around productivity, and the other one is around experience. So from the people perspective, one of the pieces of work that we've done over the last couple of years, and one of the pain points that a lot of organizations face is around how do you solve the problem that most people have around career development, right? How do you really make sure that you've got a mechanism in place that can make it easier for your employees to find jobs that are interesting in your organization than it is then going to another competitor or another organization? So we implemented a talent marketplace. And this talent marketplace essentially is two sides of a ledger. On the one hand, you've got the demand, which is driven by the employees. And so we have, in the 3 years, 80% of our workforce now that have put their profile on this platform that basically has, you know, their experience, their interest, their aspirations. And on the other hand, you've got the supply side, which is essentially managers that are saying, I've got these particular projects that I'm looking for excess capacity in the workplace. That was the start of it. Now we're putting jobs as well on there. And what the tool is doing is basically matching people's interests with and experience with the projects that are available there. And that we've seen a huge increase in terms of people being deployed into projects, cross-border projects, working on projects that are not within their particular domain. It's helping us from a diversity perspective because you're getting different ideas and innovation and creativity there. And then you're also, we're seeing an increase in terms of retention of that particular talent. About a third of people that have been in those particular projects have actually moved jobs as well. So it's actually satisfying that particular need. And we're looking to continue to expand the use cases within that talent marketplace. So that's sort of one. The other one that we've done more recently from a workforce perspective is looking at how do we deploy tools at scale to actually help in productivity in the workplace. So we use Microsoft and Microsoft Teams. We have put a pilot of Copilot onto Microsoft Teams. We have about 300 users at the moment. And within the first 28 days, we're seeing that around 96% of those users are going into Copilot and using it to do things like reviewing their emails, writing or drafting a Word document, or basically drafting an email. And the early statistics are showing that within that 28-day period, we've seen about 1,200 hours of time savings, about 4 hours per person during that 28 days. Now, it doesn't sound like a lot, but you can see there's only 3 particular use cases that we've got using Copilot at the moment. The multiplier effect of that is significant in terms of the use of it. So there are a couple of the ways that we're using it at the moment. There's many, many more examples that we can share later on.
If I can pick on your first example, I think it's really interesting that you're talking about the cross-border and how employees are going from, you know, one part of the organization to the other to do particular tasks. But obviously, we know that the elephant in the room for AI is jobs. Is it going to replace humans? You know, are people saying, oh, there's someone else coming into my field? So how has it, you know, the interaction and the reaction of the employees been to this tool?
Yeah, so in terms of the appetite and the receptiveness of the tools and what AI is, it's extremely positive. We're essentially a technology company, and therefore the use of these tools to supplement or augment their jobs is seen as a positive. We've seen also in our customer care center, the call center area, and we heard one of the panelists earlier share some of his experiences as well. We're actually seeing that even the routing of case volumes into using natural language processing into the right places, instead of it taking days to move those calls, it's actually taking minutes or hours. And so it's actually reducing a lot, and with about 80% accuracy. So we're doing this as a test and learn of about 20,000 cases over a couple of month period. But this is actually a positive thing, because the contact center employees, we know that typically they suffer a lot from burnout and repetitive nature of the role. We're actually seeing higher retention, and we're actually training the employees up to develop these chatbots and these tools to actually help them to continue to do their job, but actually focusing on higher level work and white glove service to the customer as well.
One of the executives I spoke recently described AI like having her own personal assistant, but just a lot better and a lot quicker. You know, a lot of tasks that used to take her days now take her hours. Sounds like you're describing something a little similar. How do you measure productivity? And obviously, this is important for some roles, but do you see any roles where humans would be fully replaced?
There may be some roles. I think it's like a continuum. There are some roles that may be more impacted than others. So, for example, if the role is a lot of transactional work, repetitive work, those are likely to be changed quite rapidly, and the deployment of machine learning and AI tools, definitely. But there's the other aspect of it where, particularly in the space that I'm in HR, where people decisions have to be taken. I would not delegate that my people decisions are going to a tool. I think at the end of it, the tools themselves can provide input, they can provide scenarios, they can provide options, but ultimately the line manager or the person in the HR business partner has to be accountable for the decisions. And I think it gets into the areas around governance and ethics and regulation as well, around how you train these tools and the responsibility of organizations to make sure that this isn't the wild, wild west, that there's a level of responsibility and oversight in the way that we're using it.
And what metrics are you using, and how are you using them to measure the impact of AI on productivity?
So there's a couple of ones that we're using. So some of them is around retention of talent, so the one that I mentioned earlier. We've also deployed ways in which we're helping improve things like the talent acquisition process. So, for example, some of the tools that we've deployed have reduced the amount of time that it's taking to schedule interviews with the various hiring managers from something that was taking 7 days to something like a few hours, because it's all automated now. That also helps from a candidate experience perspective. Even time to fill jobs has gone down by 20 days. And we just believe that some of that is going to continue to increase, as well as the whole sourcing of the talent pools that are available as well. There are a number of ways in which we can see that also increasing productivity as well for our talent sources.
And we know it's not cheap. So talk us through how much money you've already put into it, or how much money do you plan to put into AI over, a certain period of time, and what does the return on investment look like?
Yeah, look, my CFO is not here, and he'd kill me if I said something wrong, but it is significant investment. I mean, the work that we're doing within HR, there is significant investment just in terms of the establishment of the platform, the training up of the employees as well. We have other commercial products as well. Some of them that we've been deploying, we've got one called Chat Trends, which essentially our data and services business that basically provides consulting services to our clients. We've enabled it in a way that provides our employees, all employees, to use a text box function to be able to get information that's publicly available, but in a very, very quick and effective way. So it's those kinds of things that we're continuing to invest in. We've got another tool which is called Shopping Muse, which again helps consumers decide what clothes they're going to wear for a spring wedding, and you put in a number of parameters, and it actually does the shopping with the merchants that have signed up to that particular thing. So that is a good way as well in terms of driving revenue. And then the final use case is around, we have a product called Safety Net. So this is really a fraud prevention tool. So many of us have got individual fraud alerts that come from banks that will say, hey, is this really you that's spending this money at a particular merchant in this particular country? We've also got this tool which basically looks at an enterprise level, bad actors that may be going after some of the financial institutions that are partners with us. And that has saved $20 billion of potential fraud threats. So there's real dollars that can be connected to some of these products that we're rolling out and continue to roll out as well.
It's very interesting that, a lot of us know MasterCard from our consumer experience, and now we're getting a little bit of insight of what it looks like to work within MasterCard. And you always say that you feel like your employees need to be treated like your consumers. So talk to me about what you're doing on the consumer side with AI, and how does that compare, and how do you bring a similar type of experience to the employee of MasterCard?
Yeah, I mean, MasterCard is a B2B business, and so we work through our merchants, government, banks, and so forth. So a lot of the work that we do is in partnership. We have one particular product called Launchpad, where we work with our customers to do particular sprints. So they may have a particular use case that they're working through, and we use a variety of tools to actually help them develop a prototype at the end of the 3-day or 4-day period on whatever the issue is that they're looking to solve for their customers. So they're sort of, that's one particular case. But getting back to the HR side of it as well, this whole part around how AI is changing the way that we think about work and skills, it really is a change management effort. And I think the more that organizations are embracing the technology and the trends that are happening and bringing the workforce along with it, and thinking very diligently about how jobs will change and what skilling is required along the way, that is absolutely an important imperative, because the technology is one thing that can be replicated. It's the way that you actually mobilize the workforce around it, and doing it in again, back to a responsible way.
We've got a really good question from the audience here in talking about skills, right? I love to tell people the story of being a journalist. And my young journalists are way smarter than I am. They can use technology way better than I can, but they cannot pick up the phone and call someone to get a piece of information. So tell me about, in your role, what skills that are unique to humans that when you look at it and say, I'm sorry, but AI is not going to be able to do this.
Yeah, well, I think there are aspects around organization design, right? Organization design, most people just look at it, a couple of boxes and lines and charts and so forth. But underneath all of that, you could ask a tool to actually help you design, but it won't have the nuances. And I think those kinds of areas where you need to understand the context is a really important part of it. So I think some of the higher order decisions and context making, at this point, AI tools will struggle to be able to do that. I think that's a particular skill. And therefore, from a people perspective and a skill perspective, that aspect about judgment and decision making, rational thinking, all of those are really critically important for employees at all levels of the organization.
Do we ever get to the point where the machine is able to make those sort of decisions, or?
They'll get better. I think it's like anything. You continue to train these tools and these models, and they'll get better and better. It's still too early to say how accurate they'll be. And I think, again, the important part of all of this is really making sure that the humans and the individuals are really ensuring they're validating everything that is coming from these tools that we're beginning to develop and seeing being rolled out.
And if we can go back a little bit to the part where we're talking about fraud, I think this is a real concern for consumers and users of credit cards out there. I think most of us know someone or have experienced ourselves fraud with our credit cards, or, how is AI helping? Can you give us a couple of examples? And obviously, you work with your issuers. How is MasterCard using AI and working with the issuers to actually reduce fraud?
Yeah, so one example is even just the use of your device, whether it's whatever your smartphone device. We have got tools there that will actually recognize the way that you hold your device. Obviously, the digital identity aspect is an important way in which of identifying that it's you that's making that transaction. So there's some of the tools that we've embedded with some of the merchants and issuers that we have as customers. And then, as I mentioned, that other one, which is more at the enterprise level, the safety net, which is looking at enterprise-wide potential threats of fraud of the financial system or payment flows. That is another particular way in which we're helping some of our customers in that space.
And when you look into the future and you look at the jobs that you have now at MasterCard and you think about how the way you were taking AI, how do you see these jobs changing, and what new jobs do you envision that maybe you don't have right now?
Well, I think some of them, things like being able to develop. So we've got software engineers. At the moment, they're using particular coding languages. There are ways in which that can be supplemented with some of the AI tools that are available there. There's one that's out there, which you may have heard of, called Devon, which basically you can provide it with language that we're speaking and give it particular commands, and it will develop some code. You then need to understand how that code is being developed and whether it's got any bugs in it and so forth. So I think there's those particular tools that can actually help some of the productivity. And I think the other one is around thinking about the issues that workforces are facing as well, things like health and well-being. And so having prompts within the technology and tools to remind people to take a break, or you're about to send an email when it's midnight in a particular location, giving you those kinds of prompts as well. I think these tools can really help benefit in many ways the workforce as well.
I'm also really interested in the working from home and the hybrid work that has changed people's schedules. When you're in the office, you're not, as I say, taking your dog for a walk, baking your meringues and picking up your kids at school, and, all of the things that people really truly enjoy because it's made their lives better and more flexible, but at the same time has had an impact on productivity. Is there anything that you can say about how AI can help companies manage that productivity in the hybrid, workforce world? Because I don't think that's going to change.
Yeah, I think the tools themselves can help with some of these nudging facilities that they have. So, for example, we've got ways in which the tools can say to a manager, like it'll say to me, "Hey, Michael, you haven't met with Jason for a number of days. Do you want to do a catch-up meeting with?" So those kinds of things, when managers are really busy, helping them, remind them about certain rhythms that are happening during the month or the week or the year around career development discussions or performance or just catch-ups as well. I think it helps in those particular ways. And I think the other way is just in terms of just giving people a sense of it's not always the technology itself. You have to supplement it with policies and other programs as well to ensure that you're looking at the overall ecosystem and the end-to-end value proposition for your workforce as well.
Michael, this is great. For this audience, full disclosure, I do have 4 dogs, okay, guys? So no problems, anyone walking their dogs. It was a pleasure to have you here. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Hello, everybody. Exciting day today. I was a bit surprised that today coincided with Apple's earnings, so was a bit stressed out this afternoon, but For all of you who are interested, it's up 8% after market, so enjoy. This is an exciting panel. This is an area where we have put in a lot of effort as a department. My name is Anurag Rana. I'm a technology analyst at Bloomberg Intelligence, which is Bloomberg's in-house research arm. We recently published a very big report on the topic. It's lying around somewhere here. Please grab it if you want. But almost on a daily basis, I learn something new about this particular technology. So I'm really excited to talk AI with our team today. I'm going to start with that end. Lucien Boldier, Sarah Hoffman, Devika Bhattacharya, and Whaley. So we'd love to first start off with a bit of an introduction from our guests, and then we'll dive into questions.
Thank you very much, and really appreciate the opportunity to be here this afternoon. As you said, I'm with Honeywell International. I'm responsible for industrial automation. In Honeywell, we are a company that's really working on industrializing and scaling up AI, if you wish. It's not a concept, obviously, several people have pointed out today. It's not a new discovery AI in itself, but really that industrialization, that making AI real in industry is what we spend our time doing.
Sarah Hoffman. I'm part of Fidelity Investments Innovation Department called Fidelity Center for Applied Technology. We try to look a few years out and see what's coming when it comes to both technology and sociocultural trends. Part of the research team, and I focus on looking at AI and where it's headed.
So I'm Devika Bhattacharya from Verizon Business, which is the B2B arm of Verizon Communications. So we provide technology solutions to enterprise, public sector, small and medium customers, businesses, and it's a global business. So I lead our technology solutions organization, which means that my team ensures that we have a seamless experience across the life cycle of our solution. So how it's built, how it's designed and solutioned in the field, how it's operationally enabled, so the end-to-end experience is frictionless.
So I'm Whaley. I run the AI software engineering group at Intel. As a company, our goal is to get to AI everywhere. As you can probably, many people are using AI today. And so my goal is to make sure we deliver two things here. From software perspective, one is AI performance. People talk about how can you trust AI earlier. And the other is developer productivity that related to the skill set you may end up requiring here. How do we make it easy for people to develop AI solutions?
So our session is called Leveraging AI to Improve Productivity and Profitability. Now, profitability is near and dear to my heart, being a financial analyst. So we'd love to start off with you, Devika. Please tell us how you're using this internally to improve either productivity or whatever initiatives there are that will help your bottom line.
Yeah, so there's a lot of interest in AI recently, but AI is not new. So companies like Verizon, we've been using AI for a long time, and it's mainly in the areas of operational efficiencies, customer experience, which we heard about in a previous panel, and also how we build our networks to be more efficient and effective. So we've been using deep learning as well as machine learning for many years. Deep learning as we build out our 5G networks to do geospatial intelligence, get digital images of bridges, buildings, et cetera, so we know where to place our optical transmitter nodes. And then also a lot of machine learning, because building networks is a massive logistical challenge. We have digital twins, so we can do what-ifs of network scenarios, but also scheduling optimization, resource optimization, making sure all the pieces come together so that when you do turn up a cell tower or some other aspects of the network, it's ready to go. So in terms of productivity, with the same workforce, Anurag, between like 2018 and even during COVID, actually, when we had supply chain challenges, we were able to build our networks 2.5 times faster using all these machine learning and deep learning algorithms. And then even as we look at our customers, both on the business and the consumer side, we collect a lot of data, like 1,500 data points per customer. And once again, in case anybody gets worried, it's privacy first. We don't monetize or sell any of the data. But we understand behavior. So we have loyalty deciles that we've defined, and we can very precisely predict which customers are going to leave or maybe switch, and what we can do to try to prevent that. So I consider these business as usual. And I think what's exciting now is we are taking our experience over the years with what we call traditional AI and augmenting it with generative AI, which is the next step with hyper-personalization and some of the other capabilities, making networks autonomous. So it's, productivity has seen tremendous gains with what we've done so far.
This is partially the reason whenever I'm building financial models, I'm seeing revenue go up, but the headcount is not going up. And I mean, that has been a very big driver of profitability or margins for a lot of companies. Intel, what are you guys doing?
Yes. So I'm sure you know what we do here. and so we've been using AI for many years also, and all the way from the, nowadays it's hard to say, traditional AI, statistical AI, machine learning there. And even deep learning is considered old nowadays, right? And so it's more mature in terms of deploying these technologies along the way, and then we are deploying Gen AI-based solutions as well. So we've been covering both the productivity side and the profitability side. So for example, we have AI inside the products we've been selling, right? These products become better because of AI inside. So if you have a laptop, your laptop actually has AI inside. And internally, we've been using AI to improve the productivity of people here. We have sales support with AI inside. And more recently, we have deployed Gen AI-based solutions. For example, we are multinational, as many of you guys here. And for different sites, they have different issues. And it's hard for employees to find the general managers to ask these questions. So we created a Ask GM, Ask General Manager chatbot, specifically fine-tuned for that particular site. So there are a variety of use cases we've been deploying already using AI, and we continue to explore new approaches for doing this. So I run an engineering team. Inside engineering team, we have different places we can actually use AI for help here. One is on the development side. Copilot, can you generate code automatically for us, do debugging automatically for us? And on the validation side, we've been developing Gen AI-based, LLM-based models to actually automatically triaging bugs and file bug reports and all these things. So these things are all happening, and we develop AI infrastructure as well as developing AI solutions, and we learn a lot ourselves in terms of building these AI solutions.
Great. So Lucien, when I called my industrial analyst to learn about what Honeywell does, and she told me they have a lot of products and a lot of divisions. And that typically, sounds to me that there is massive amount of opportunity to improve profitability, improve productivity. So what all have you been doing in that area?
Yeah, look, we're a controls company in general. So if you look at what we do, we measure, we sense, then we sell a control system, and then over time, we derive more and more value from that. So AI, certainly, I think everybody said it now, it's not new. That science, that principle of creating an install base, getting leverage from it is not new. So we do that for our customers. We just now, with AI, can do it faster, can do it better, can do it more efficiently. We do the same thing to ourselves. So I think if you think in an industrial setting, what are some of the obvious things you can do? If you have a very complex supply chain, a very complex value chain, I think everybody's heard of chip shortage. So how do you build better tools on basic things like clear to build? So how do you look into your forecasts? How do you use predictive tools to predict demand on a very fragmented supply chain base? How do you go backwards? Then another simple one is how do you run your physical inventories? No longer are the days with a clipboard and going around and looking for boxes. You can actually use machine vision. You can use a drone that flies around your warehouse and does physical inventories all the time. Again, we sit here fearing job loss. I don't know who wants that job to go in and scan the boxes in the labor shortage that we have today versus the accuracy of doing that real time and not having all the write-offs. So I could go on with examples, but I can tell you that our mindset is we wouldn't sell something to a customer that we don't try ourselves first. And so somebody was talking about earlier drinking their own champagne. I like that statement, and that's really what we do also as Honeywell.
Great. Sarah, Fidelity, everybody knows Fidelity. I'm sure in my earlier years I've applied a few times for a job also. But when you look at is Gen AI a new tool in the fintech industry? And how are financial firms using it today?
So generative AI is not new. It's been around for a long time. I would say, though, for many of us in AI, it was when we saw GPT-3 in 2020, the previous version of ChatGPT, that we realized something remarkable was happening. We didn't expect it to be this good at all. None of us, not even anyone in AI. Or most of us. So that's really when many of us started thinking about it. And obviously, with the release of ChatGPT, there was a lot more excitement, and a lot of companies in the financial services space are really thinking about, how do you use a tool that's not completely accurate? That's pretty much the #1 question. And so it's really thinking about it as a first human-in-the-loop internal tool, right, like everybody was saying, test it out on your employees, but also have a human in the loop so that you could really, if there is a problem, somebody can change things and fix it up. And so that's really the way most financial services firms are looking at this technology. There's so many ways to make employees more efficient, whether it's with coding and having a development tool, or even helping somebody search through large amounts of content, even with a tool that's not completely accurate.
Fair. So we started off with talking about how Gen AI can help you improve productivity internally. Now, how are you employing it so that your clients at the end, who are the final consumers of those products, how are they getting the benefit of that? Or what are you working on that we see as an outsider?
Yeah, so from my perspective, we are an infrastructure company. We build the tools for people to develop solutions, applications on top of this, and we do both hardware and software. And so on the software side, we're making it easier. On the hardware side, together with software, we're making things run fast, much faster over there. So because of the capabilities that we've been developing, we have been working with a lot of clients, actually, a lot of customers, and they're seeing all kinds of interesting AI applications. And if I can mention one, it was always pretty intriguing, which is ordering burgers. I'm not sure how many of you eating burgers nowadays. When you do a drive-through, it used to be you have to talk to a person. So now actually they have a conversational AI that can actually handle the burger ordering seamlessly, right? And so that's one end of this. And the other end is we also been working with national labs, looking at the very large-scale model training to do for science. 1 trillion parameter models. Actually, it's local. It's Argonne National Lab. It's not a secret, right? It's local in Chicago here. So anything in between, we're seeing all kinds of applications. On the medical healthcare side, we're seeing people using better radiology because of image processing and all these things. So because of the nature of our company, I guess we are supporting all kinds of use cases. And as part of my job, I was lucky to be able to talk to a lot of different people and very different use cases, all the way from the Fortune 500 big companies all the way to the smaller companies, where it's more interesting to go to the smaller companies because we believe in AI everywhere. AI will be everywhere. When you go down to the smaller companies, quite often they don't have a data scientist team, right? The big companies, they can afford to have an AI team, data scientist team. And the small companies, they have a lot of data. They just don't have enough AI expertise to do this thing here, right? So as part of our job, my team's job as well as the community, the AI overall software community, to make it easy for people to create all these applications here.
Cool. So Devika, for you, sometimes when I'm going home, I'll just go to the Verizon chatbot or try to reduce my bill with them. What are some of the other applications that the client would see?
How did that work for you?
It's actually went up. So,
profitability.
Profitability. So what are some of the applications that a client would see that Verizon's working on?
Yeah, so actually Verizon, it's a very interesting time. I think in one of the previous panels we mentioned that this is a generational opportunity. As a company that builds networks, and we think about the massive amounts of data that now has to be transferred, securely across different parts, from your endpoints, to different devices, to your data centers, to the hyperscalers. Network companies are in the center of it all. And by some stroke of luck, looking back, we'll say we had, this great idea a few years before its time, but we actually built compute and storage into the network itself. So as we think about AI applications as they roll out, the training models, I think, will still be in the hyperscaler clusters. But as we look at inferencing and starting to bring some of that closer to the user and starting to look at more real-time applications, especially for Gen AI, a network that already has that in it is very powerful. So we've already started seeing very interesting use cases. I'll just say one very quickly, because I was only talking to the CIO last week. It's a used car company. I won't mention the name, but they buy and sell used cars. Now, every used car is unique. New cars, they're similar to others, but every used car is unique. But digitally, based on all the information they get, the history, the maintenance history, the year, the location, and and if you want to sell it, you can take pictures, right? Upload it. You get a price right away without anybody having seen that car. Uses a massive amounts of AI from all the different data sources. The picture that is uploaded using our 5G network, and all of it can yield to a dynamic price that's personalized for that individual at that location at that time, right? So those are the types of use cases that can be facilitated and enabled by having a network like what Verizon has. So it's a very exciting time for us being in the center, of this AI evolution.
So used car salesman going away, it's not a bad thing.
Yeah.
Lucian, what about yourself? How's the end Honeywell client? What are they seeing out there?
Yeah, I think, as I said, once you have that install base, the value that you can create is pretty significant. And I can give industrial examples, and maybe some of the room will gloss over. So let me try with a consumer example that's pretty straightforward. So we sell, for example, electrical meters, thanks to our partner, Verizon. Actually, they're now 5G enabled. So no more truck pulling up in front of your house, fighting your dog for access to the meter. The meter is 5G. It can communicate to the utility. That's a pretty basic thing. But that is the install base. That's really where AI really begins. Now that meter transmits a certain amount of information to the utility. It transmits consumption, but there's also a usage pattern. You disaggregate that data with good analytics. You can actually tell when the air conditioner started, when the EV got plugged in, what is the buying habit, what is the consumption habit. It allows the utility to price electricity differently based on peak demand. It allows then the consumer to have an app on the other side where you can drive choices with the consumer. So it really allows value creation on both sides, and ultimately, what does it allow from a societal standpoint? Is it more effective utilization of the power grid? In the end, we know that we are in an energy shortage overall. We talk about green energy or more traditional legacy energy, but in the end, we need more energy as we move forward because middle class is emerging, more consumption is coming from that around the world. Data centers consume a lot of electricity. We have EVs in our garages, so there is more need. So utilizing the infrastructure that we have more effectively just creates value from everybody. Same goes for the water infrastructure, the smart water meters. We do that as well. Same thing goes for gas. So really optimizing the network on the utility space is just one simple use case of what we do.
And Sarah, for you, in what ways financial firms can serve their customers better? Like, where do we see the potential there?
Sure. So one area that really excites me is thinking about financial literacy and how complicated it is today to really get a good understanding of finance in general and specifics as well. And I really think a good generative AI tool could help customers learn and understand more before they meet with a human advisor. And I think I've been talking about personalization in AI. We all have for so many years. But it was when I first started using generative AI as an education tool that I finally felt like I saw true individualized personalization. You can ask to explain something with a metaphor. You can ask to explain something as a fifth grader, as a college student, based on a certain amount of knowledge that you have or don't have. And so really every customer could learn in their own way and really then have a much more informed discussion with their advisor later on. The other thing that I really see that could really help customers is thinking about like front-end interface. Today, it could be very hard to go to a financial services website and find what you're looking for. And I kind of see this as when Google was first released, the thing that we all loved about it was that it was just a text box. It was so simple. And I think this could really be transformative when it comes to interfaces. We could just have a text box. No one needs to know how to navigate the page. They can just say, okay, I want to see how my fund is doing compared to the S&P. And they don't need to know how to find that. It'll just bring it up. And so I think that can also really simplify the customer experience.
Throughout news and everything written and videos, we see all sorts of different things that can happen. But you guys actually sit with people who are coming and selling you technology products and stuff. So let me start with you, Devika. What are the 2 or 3 different things that you are so most excited about in terms of technology innovations that you think is going to change even more from where we are right now?
Yeah, and I think similar to Sarah, I think especially with generative AI right now, I think it's going to actually transform the telecom industry in some ways, because there's, you're talking about complexity in the financial investing and that side of it. There's also a lot of complexity in telecom. You're talking about, trying to, like reduce the size of your bill. But if you think about it, there's so many different price plans, which is the right one for you. If you think about other services, there's so much optionality. We ask a lot of questions, and I think it's okay to have complexity, but it's not okay to expose complexity to your end users. And I think that is going to be such a huge change in how we interact with things. You don't have to be a subject matter expert, whether it's in buying Verizon services or buying financial services or buying other services. It's just that ease of use. I sometimes use car analogies, and one of them is you don't have to understand how your car actually works, but you can get in and drive it, right? And if there's something goes wrong, you're told what to do. Like, how do we bring our industries to that level of simplicity so that the user doesn't need to know, and ask the right questions and do the extra research, and, it's sort of done for you. And my goal is to have our industry transformed that way over the next few years.
Where people must be pitching new technologies to you all the time. What excites you?
Yeah, they're pitching to us, and we do new technologies ourselves also. So I think there are 2 things that look very interesting here. One is we continue to push the boundary of artificial intelligence in the sense of AI performance, and we are seeing people doing bigger and bigger models, and these things become smarter and smarter. But the second thing I think probably not only equally important, probably more interesting to me is we can apply these intelligence in a more efficient fashion. So you don't need to have a 1 trillion parameter model everywhere for your use. And quite often what we do is 7 billion parameter model, and these are very effective. You take this relatively smaller model, you can fine tune with your own data, you can run it more efficiently. And nowadays, we can run it all the way with a laptop. You can run these things, right? So I think that's an exciting future where we can enable the entire world with all kinds of smart things going on here.
Okay. Your industry is obviously very complicated. And I remember the days when I used to write about IoT and, all that stuff. So what is it that excites you about the next generation of technology?
I think I would start with even today's generation of technologies because they're grossly underused. I think if we look at customers in general, if we did a survey ourselves, and a super high percentage, 80+%, are interested in adopting AI. 70% think it would be revolutionary over a pretty short period of time. But then a very high percentage of people are piloting the use of AI. So I think we've done a poor job of explaining. I think we've overhyped it a little bit as if it's something new. Just imagine going to your doctor and the news is, well, I'm going to use AI to help diagnose you. That's scary. Well, guess what? They've been using it for a long time. It's not new, but I think we tend to induce that. So first and foremost, I think it's driving the usage of existing technologies. I think if I look ahead in the short term, what we haven't talked a lot about is there's a very significant workforce shortage. On one hand, you get questions, what happens when AI replaces all the jobs? And on the other hand, we can't get pilots, we can't get chemical operators, we can't get just about anybody, and we're afraid we're going to destroy all the jobs. So it's a bit of a dichotomy where we want societally exactly the perfect amount of AI to improve exactly the perfect amount of productivity. But there's a lot it can do. So to answer your question specifically, everybody's talking about a co-pilot. And there's a co-pilot that is probabilistic in nature. So it's probabilistic AI that is mostly going to be right advising you. And then you get into the field of deterministic AI, where you actually have to run a refinery, land an airplane, do something that has to be right with 99 point lots of nines after the 9% of the time. So now how do you take the subject matter expertise, the first principles, along with all the data analytics, and also ultimately the software there, and how do you drive that decision making? And we see those tools. We have a new product called Operations Copilot. This allows an operator in an industrial environment to have the benefit of all the experience of the people before him or her right beside them. They're still the ones running the machine, but ultimately they have a co-pilot here. At some point, you'll have that in the friendly skies as well. And at some point, we've talked about earlier, it'll be in a car. And so that all will make us all more productive. That will make us all safer. That will improve a lot of, somebody was talking about improving life expectancy. We really didn't think about that until today, to be honest with you. But I think the benefits way, way, way outweigh what we're worried about now, that this being the one technology revolution in the history of man that will be negative as a disruptor. Most of the ones so far have actually improved the quality of life. I don't see any reason why AI wouldn't as well, but I think there's more ground to be plowed here.
Yeah, that leads me to a question for you, Sarah. Like, when we talked, there was a whole discussion about kind of the barriers or the limitation of why are people afraid of embracing it right now. So what are your thoughts about that?
Yeah, there are so many limitations, and one of them is the fact that it could hallucinate, that you just don't know what you're going to get, even if it's 90+% of the time it's accurate. What happens that other percent of the time? The other is there's a lot of legal questions still pending to be determined. What about the fact that they use training data to create these models that maybe they weren't allowed to use? And so those still need to be ironed out. And so that also makes people a little bit wary about using a technology. There's also the potential of regulations, and nobody knows exactly how those regulations are going to look. And then I guess another limitation is some of these companies may not know, can I trust my data and give my data to this company that's creating this LLM that might be great for me? And so that's another thing that companies have to consider and be cautious about. And so there's definitely still a lot of barriers to go through when you're looking at this technology.
Let's take a question from the audience. This is open for anybody who wants to answer. Otherwise, I have a few more. Do you prefer in-house GPUs and data centers or renting services as such? So anybody wants to comment?
I can start. Do you want
No, go ahead.
I think actually it's a combination. We do, based on the use case, and it's not, one LLM doesn't fit all. It's not a one size fits all. So for different use cases, we've seen that there are different models, different LLMs, different inferencing models. So based on the use case, there's some of it, whether it's in one of our partners with Google, like in GCP or other places, and then also within Verizon and our own data center. So it really depends on the use case. The answer in our case is both.
Okay. All right. So let me just ask one last question. Perhaps, Sarah, you could enlighten us about it. How do you improve the quality of the AI results?
So, one thing that was mentioned in some of the earlier sessions is about this RAG, and basically using your own data first in conjunction with search technology, so that then you can really make sure that it's answering based on your data. It's much less likely to say something inaccurate. And it also could have more updated information, because you could update that as much as you want. These models, so I guess I forgot to mention this in the limitations, it's really expensive to create these models, so they don't have real-time information. They're not updated that often, and so that also can help you. And so that's really one approach that a lot of companies are looking at to try to overcome some of the limitations.
Last one for you, Wei. In the same context, on the on-device piece of it, then how do you, I guess, embed data at the same time on the chip level? I mean, the model, and then how you train it over there.
Yeah, so we continue to see progress both in terms of hardware side and the software side. And the hardware capabilities continue to improve in terms of amount of compute capabilities we can have everywhere, all the way from supercomputers that we're supporting, all the way to the smaller devices over there. So I think the world will change quite a bit. And the other thing I mentioned earlier is on the software side, you need to be able to fine-tune it. Actually today, pick a smaller model with fine-tuning. Quite often, that's actually better than a generic big model, which, analogy-wise, you may have a undergrad or high school graduate who knows a little bit of everything, but you need a PhD who is specialized in something which is very deep, right? So you can actually have different trade-offs here, and you can do a variety of things here. And if you as Devika said earlier, the use cases are all very different, right? Depending on the use case, you may run into different issues here or there, and it's like we keep talking about the car analogy. When I started driving, I had to learn stick shift, right? And over time, you have auto transmission, and you have a self-driving car at some point. So depending on what use case you have, you may end up picking one of these.
Great, thank you. Thanks, everybody. It's time for us. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, well, that does it for the content portion of our program. I want to thank all of our speakers that were out here for today. I also want to thank all of you for just being such an engaging audience, the smiling faces that kind of keep me going here. I look for a smiling face, and there we go. Also, I want to thank IBM for all their help, for their sponsorship for all of this as well. If you'd like to find out more information about IBM, head to our event website, click on that resources tab, and that will bring you right to their information. I also want to say, if you heard something today and you're like, oh, I wish I remember what that person said, or I wish I remember this, you can go back and you can watch it again and you can show it to whoever you need. All you have to do is head to BloombergLive.com and you can watch it on demand from there as well. This is not the end. There are more to come. This is a series, okay? We have a number of events coming up. Atlanta is August 22nd. We have Los Angeles, October 8th. And then we have New York on November 13th. If you cannot make it in person, join in on the live stream as well. Head to BloombergLive.com to sign up for that, and we hope to see you at our next event. For everybody here, join us for networking, join us for some cocktails afterwards, and everyone virtually at home, have a good night. Open your own bottle. Thank you very much.